You still have your job, apparently. So that does say something.
It would be hard to fire me.
Apparently.
I mean, part of the problem is one of the reasons I got canceled is because I twice fought unionizations.
Yeah.
Oh, you're one of those scumbags, right?
And the first time was at the request of the dean of faculty. The second time was at the request of the provost, of late night phone call. You got to fight this. You got to put together a team. And that's the now president. And so if they fired me, that group was sort of behind my cancellation. So firing me would have been hard because, witness number one would be, did you ask Collum to fight the unions? And did that lead to, them canceling him and stuff like that?
Wow. Okay, just come out and say the quiet part out loud.
I really think Cornell's great. I think most universities are fine.
What is the complaint of anti-union people? What is the complaint of union busters? There is no valid complaint that any anti-union person could possibly have, right? Unions are a good thing. They increase wages dramatically across an industry, not just for the unionized people. How could anybody possibly be opposed to unions? Seriously. It just blows my mind that anybody could ever be opposed to unions.
Needed a fastball past our chin. Great example, Claudine Gay. Shouldn't be president of Harvard, shouldn't be on the faculty, shouldn't have a PhD, in my opinion.
Good thing your opinion is worth the paper it's written on. Your opinion is absolutely worthless in this area. Claudine Gay is perfectly legitimate, is a perfectly fine person, knows what she's talking about, is completely competent, and it's just disgusting that this dude and people like him carry water for these extremist fucking nutcases that hate quote-unquote anti-woke, whatever. It's insane. Sign up for my Patreon. I'd really appreciate that very much. It would mean so much to me. This is like a really precarious moment in history, in U.S. history, and for me personally, so it would mean a lot if you sign up for my Patreon. Check out cultarchive.org. I did a cult test, basically, where you can see if you're in a cult, and you can look at the historical tests of other groups that already went through this. Also, check out my merch. I have a whole bunch of really cool shirts and stuff. Really interesting. I would really appreciate that.
That is the sign of the rot that has gotten into the universities, but that it's still an exceptional rot. So I don't see people at Cornell that look like Claudine Gay to me. And if you actually look...
Claudine Gay is black. Is that what you mean?
In the whole DEI thing, you say, well, universities are super duper DEI. And I go, you guys are forgetting that a year ago or 2 years ago, if you weren't DEI, you got destroyed.
Bullshit. What are you even talking about?
The whole system was geared up to make sure you paid dearly if you weren't DEI. So you had to have your deans of diversity, and
it's just complete bullshit, and it's seriously deeply fucking disgusting. These people are vile human beings. Do you know that in the 50s, 60s, 70s, the KKK was very, very powerful, right? As most of us know. Until it came to the point where the KKK basically became the butt of every joke. They were made fun of relentlessly. They were laughed at. And it was no longer cool to be a KKK member anymore. They were so incredibly powerful in society, the KKK was. They could literally murder somebody in broad daylight and hang them from a tree, and there's nothing anybody could say or do to change it. Until they became the butt of every joke. We need to make fun of these people and make it clear that they are the Nazi extremist scumbags that they really are. By the way, check out my website, cultarchive.org. I have historical tests there. You can take an assessment to see if you are in a cult, and you can look at the results of other cults that have taken the test. It's pretty interesting stuff. It gives a little explainer about what each group is and their origins and things like that. Cultarchive.org. Check it out. Look at this. This is the KKK has effectively worked its way back into society with these types of talking points. What we're about to listen to from Charlie Kirk here is exactly the type of shit the KKK would say.
Turbulence hits, or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw.
Right stuff meaning...
Get into the cockpit before we took off, and I feel better now.
No, I mean, like, I want to go thought crime. Like, I'm sorry. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
That's the type of shit the KKK would say. And it's now openly said in society again. That was from 2024, by the way. That was from a year and almost 2 years ago. This is before Donald Trump. And it's safe to say it again, I guess, in 2024. The 2020s are the darkest fucking timeline, dude. And somebody else points out, if I saw a black pilot, I would be like, I know it was like that much harder for that dude to get into that position. So he is overqualified, if anything.
The world was demanding it. And don't forget, this is a world where biological men were competing in women's sports. They still kind of are, but at least it's now.
This is just illusion. No, it's complete fictitious trash.
Starting to dissipate. And that was considered totally normal and was considered rational. And if you fought it, you get fired and things like that. So the universities were simply responding. Now, they'd gotten way left wing. My colleagues were all hired based on their skills, guaranteed. I'd remember a case if it was a DEI hire. I remember a case because I would have fought it. I would have screamed. I don't shut up on things like that. We try to find the best person in the world to hire, and we go for that person if we can.
It's always been like that. It's just that they were considering more black applicants. You think black applicants can't be hired for their skill? This is some race realism shit. You think that it's an inferiority thing? You think that they're just not as good as white people? What? Like, what's the complaint here?
And we do pretty well. And so if you were on a campus, you wouldn't see what we're hearing about. I don't think. You'd walk around the campus, everything just looks pretty normal.
So you're in the hardest of the hard sciences, though. Do you think
that's the problem? If I walked over the art squad, I'd see some Looney Tunes, right? And we're now destroyed. The cost of an education is too high to waste it. And so if you're going to spend $300,000, you can't go into a career that you make $40,000.
Okay. Yep. It's too expensive. I agree. But what's his solution? Just don't go to college is his solution. What the fuck?
That you make 25 because you're a barista.
Yeah.
Right? It's just no longer even viable. So you have to. So colleges, if I were president of Cornell, I'd put together an elite committee of people I absolutely trusted and say, you guys are in charge of trying to figure out where we should be in 20 years and how to get there. Because we can't be here in 20 years. It's not
Beware. What's your complaint?
going to work. Arts and sciences and this whole idea of this broadly based education was formed prior to the cost and was formed when wealthy people went to college. So you could be frivolous if you wanted. And getting a sheepskin could get you onto Wall Street and be the lead analyst for all the dot-coms, Henry Blodgett style, right? Those days are gone. And so colleges are going to have to tighten up. But my colleagues are, I would say on average, out of 30 colleagues, I'll say maybe, I think 27 of them are left of center. And I can't explain why. Now,
all right. Well, this guy is a Hitler supporter, effectively. He said that earlier in the stream. I don't know if you guys, which part you're in or whatever now, but he is an actual supporter of the Nazi government. So, like, effectively. So left of center to him is very, very different than to everybody else. When he says left of center, what he means is like they still want to hunt the homeless for sport. They just don't fully agree that Hitler was a good guy, like that type of shit right there. Psychotic. Absolutely fucking psychotic.
when I talk to them, they're totally rational people, totally reasonable people. The way it works as a chemist is you are an entrepreneur. You get a job. They give you startup money to get started. You have to then go raise money. Funding rates are ballpark maybe 15% of the people who get funded. By the way, the ones who never get funded, they've dropped off. So that 15% is people still trying. And I'm going to brag. I put 21 in a row successfully. Do the math on that. That's improbable.
I have no idea what he's talking about right now, but okay. Wow, you're so super cool and good. Jeez, look at this guy. He's so super cool and good. But he is a Hitler supporter effectively, so I've completely lost all respect for him.
But my colleagues are constantly battling. They're putting together this program. They're running research groups of anywhere from 5 to 30. No one pays for that. They raise the money from the federal system. You say, well, the Fed shouldn't pay the money. Well, years and years ago, we decided the way to run a research program in the United States was through universities and federal grants. It was a Sputnik thing. There's other ways to do it.
A Sputnik thing, isn't that's a Russian word for, God, what I forget what it is. It's the name of their vaccine, and it's also the name of their space capsule when they went to space, I believe, in the Soviet Union. I'm not sure what he's referring to when he says Sputnik. Okay.
But we set up that system. And if you look at all the startup companies around the country and all the pharmaceutical agents, you can trace their origins back to academic labs. Pfizer discovers far fewer drugs.
It's 100% true. Yep, absolutely. And that's what government grants are for in, like with universities. We're paying for those medicines that are invented. We are paying for that shit. And Pfizer is charging us out the ass for it. So Pfizer gets money from the government to research this shit, or Pfizer or the universities get money from the government to fund this research. And when they research it, Pfizer gets paid from us to use it, to get it. So yeah, we are getting absolutely fucked by the medical system in the United States, of course, obviously.
Then they buy from some small startup that came out of some biochemistry department or some medical school or something. And so the academic research area is the foundation level starting point. I have a number of friends who are worth a fortune because they patented something. And that's actually good because it would be neutered and not even usable by the free market if it didn't have the patent coverage. And so it made sense.
I mean, we could talk about some of the problems with our patent system in the US, but whatever.
So it puts an incentive system in there, right? Cornell gets some, the investigator gets some, the department gets some, and the world gets a new drug. It's not a crazy system. Now, there's other ways to do it.
It's a fucked up and ass backwards system. I will give you that. It's most definitely that, but okay. Oh my God, I hit the wrong button.
But that's not how we do it. And we produce the best science. So it worked. Now, the problem is that Trump threw a fastball past our chin and we deserved it. We absolutely deserved it. So he's saying, look.
Dude, talk about bootlicking. Trump I don't know what he's about to even complain about, but just from like what this guy has said already, it sounds like he's about to say that like Trump completely fucked the academic industry, and this guy's about to say that we deserved it, or he did say that.
Rid of the guys in sports, which Penn did with Leah Thomas, get rid of the DEI, which a lot of schools are trying to, and at the same time ducking, naming them by different things. But the fastball was needed. The problem is, he, as you said at breakfast, it was the social stuff that Trump was going after. But you don't go after the social stuff with social stuff. You go after it by going after the money.
Right.
I don't understand what the fuck he's talking about right now.
So Harvard's locked down for $9 billion of research funds. And my understanding is it's still locked down. Cornell's locked down for over $1 billion.
Harvard was getting $9 billion from the feds for research of various kinds, and it's on hold.
And it's on hold. And the word cancel versus frozen, I was trying to figure it out.
Oh, that's right. Right. I remember now. So Donald Trump, they're not on hold because of social stuff, quote unquote. Donald Trump is trying to force Harvard to hire certain specific people and fire anybody to the left of hunting the homeless for sport. That's what's happening. And Harvard said no. They're not capitulating to fascism. That's what it is. I had no idea what the fuck he was talking about until just now. That makes sense. And this guy is literally justifying what Donald Trump is doing, trying to impose control over Harvard. Talk about bootlicking, seriously.
Columbia, I thought it was a canceled, or Columbia got crushed. And then Columbia put out a memo that said canceled. Now, I don't know if that's because it's been canceled, but my understanding is the money's not flowing. Now, the problem is, as a trustee said to me, if this goes into 2026, we're in a world of trouble. I said, if this goes into August, we're in a world of trouble. I've got colleagues with 15-person research groups that are all funded by these federal grants, and they do good science. There's probably some crap in the humanities, but they suck about $10,000 of grant money out of the system to do that stupid thing. I don't know. And I don't even know if it's stupid.
Then why did you say that? Are you serious right now?
And there's no so now if you're getting your PhD, there's no one who can give you a postdoc. That's the next step. That step's broken. And so the system right now is it's flatlined. And I really wish they'd gotten rid of USAID, and you told me they did. They just moved it. Well, that's a problem. But I think the academic research system was working.
Dude, this guy is all over the map. It is so hard to fucking tell what he is talking about right now, but I think that he's supporting Donald Trump in basically completely screwing over like the academic world because he wants control of it. That's my interpretation here.
I think part of the problem from a civilian perspective are the endowments.
Now, let me explain the endowments.
So let me just complete the thought by saying it's the no tax part that I think drives some of us.
He doesn't understand what an endowment is. Or he does, and he's just completely full of shit. I don't know. Let me just explain, because I didn't know how this worked for a long time, but when you invest in something, like you invest in the stock market and you have a whole bunch of money, right, that you're putting into something. Say you have $1 million and you invest it into the stock market, you're going to get a certain amount of interest back every year. Say $50,000 in interest back every year, because you're investing the money in these companies. And Netflix, it's effectively like you're borrowing the money from Netflix when you buy one of their stocks. And Netflix, it gives you interest on what you gave them, basically. And if you put $1 million into that, and you end up with $50,000 in interest at the end of the year, or something like that. What is that? I don't know. So I say 2% interest. We're talking $20,000. 2% is pretty low. Some people get 6-7% interest. So, you're talking about 50,000. Anyway, Harvard has something called an endowment where it's basically like $2 billion in the bank account, but you can't touch that money. You can't spend that money. They use that endowment, that large sum of money, they gain interest from that. And they use that interest that they gain from this massive, $2 billion amount of money that they have invested. They use that to pay their employees every year. That's how universities can operate and do all this stuff and run grant programs and everything else and do research without making anything from it. There's a very low probability that this organic chemist and the research that he's doing is actually going to come to anything. There's a low probability he's going to, be able to make money for Harvard, but they're giving him tons and tons and tons of money anyway to do the research. They can do that because they have all of that money in the stock market, and they are giving him some of the interest to do this research. That's what an endowment is. So when they say they have $10 billion in the bank or whatever, I have no idea what they have. That's not money that they have in the bank that they can spend. An endowment is not spendable. You cannot spend it. It guarantees that no matter what happens, this university will continue to operate for free. They will be able to offer free services, free research opportunities and things. It guarantees that we will be able to, do research on things, whether it's profitable or not. And that's part of the foundation that's been how universities operate for ever. So people talking about how big Harvard's endowment is, it's a transparent attempt to lie and twist things around and present it as something other than what it is. American Atheist has a gigantic endowment. I have no idea what it is. I don't my wife doesn't know, even though she works for them, nobody knows. If I had to guess, I would say probably $50 million. I don't know. They've been around for 75 years, and they have had a lot of income, and they put it into the bank and they live off the interest. American Atheists pays their employees off of interest and stuff. That's how a lot of companies operate. A lot of nonprofits operate. And all of the donations that they get go into actually paying for things, paying for people to whatever it is, wounded warriors or whatever. And the employees are paid through the interest gained by the endowment. That's how it works. So I don't know what Tucker is about to bitch about here. but I guarantee he knows that. I guarantee you that he knows how this works, and he's about to just make some shit up.
To want to sort of storm the campus with guns, because that's, everyone's getting, the private equity guys are taking all their income as interest, so they're paying half the rate. But for a normal person, you're paying over half of everything you make to the government, and it's being spent on nonsense or
I'm not sure what he's talking about now. I'm lost.
Or given to Ukraine. And
that's just complete trash. That's a lie. What about Israel? Isn't it weird he doesn't mention that? In fairness, he does mention Israel because he's an actual neo-Nazi, like a real actual neo-Nazi. But the point is that he's looking for propaganda opportunities here. That's my point.
Then there are these giant hedge funds called university endowments that aren't paying any taxes. And I think that can really drive people bonkers.
They already paid taxes.
Including.
They already paid taxes on those endowments. That money was already taxed, and it's just sitting in the accounts. And they do pay taxes on the money that comes out of the endowments. Like the interest that you gain when you realize those gains, it's taxed as capital gains at 15%. It should be higher. I will absolutely agree to that. But Tucker wouldn't agree with that. Tucker is part of the reason why capital gains is so low. Dude is completely full of shit. Every word out of his fucking mouth.
University endowments that aren't paying any taxes. And I think that can really drive people bonkers, including me.
Well, I understand. There are some subtleties of endowments. Again, it's not to say that you're not 100% correct, but
he's 100% wrong.
But I at least want to say to your listeners, so they understand what they're complaining about. First and foremost, there supposedly are rules where the universities are not supposed to be competing with the private sector. So, and they get around those. But if Cornell builds housing is making money off the housing in town, that kind of breaks the rule, right? But they build dorms and things like that. So you're right about that.
No, he's not. That's just complete nonsense. You can't live in the dorms if you are not going to college. That is not competing with housing. Like, what are you fucking talking about?
The endowments are a funny game. First and foremost, I looked this up last week. Approximately 50% of all endowment spin off. So it spins off that revenue, and Harvard's has been collecting since 1656. 50% of the money spun off goes to financial aid, which means making college more affordable. Admittedly, not very affordable for a lot of people, but making it more affordable. So half of the money being spun off is going right back to education of the students. Another 20% supposedly is for academic programs, which means paying for things that would have to be paid for or we'd have to do without. And I would argue we got bloated. So there's things we should have done without. If you looked at the dining program now compared to what they have now, it's really unbelievable.
I'm not against good food. I'm against DEI administrators and administrators in general. Like college should be focused on professors.
I agree with that.
Okay, we're not talking about DEI, quote unquote. We're talking about endowments. Where the fuck did DEI come into the conversation? Tucker is lying and propagandizing, and Dave Collum here, believe it or not, seems to understand what an endowment is and is now arguing with Tucker about it, and he has nowhere to go. So he's trying to find a position of agreement with the dude. This is fucking absurd. These two human beings are fucking jokes. Both of them. It's painful.
And that's where we should have gotten the fastball passer.
Do any of these schools have more tenured professors than they do administrators? I don't think so.
The administrative bloat is a combination of all the problems that drive you nuts, and the fact that the interactions between the university and the feds and the states has gotten more complicated.
Right.
So for example, you need way more bean counters.
And grant writers and...
Well, no, grant writers are me.
Okay.
They're us. The grants are being written by the faculty. And again, the DEI, Michigan's DEI payroll was 93 million last time I read about it. That's a lot of money. Right.
It's just disgusting fucking bullshit. Their DEI payroll is 93 million. What does that mean? Does that mean the payroll for black people? Does that mean the payroll for people who are unqualified? Or what do you mean by that? These people are vile fucking racists. Really. Like, I don't know how else to interpret this. These people are fucking disgusting. Honestly.
Right. But But just when you get a federal grant, there's so many things you have to do. It used to, they ran it out of a shoebox. Here's your check, spend it wisely. You know, that's what, it's no longer like that. Now it reached the absurd point where you're supposed to make statements about how you're going to save the whales and donate organs to Guatemalan orphans and things like that. And
I'm sorry?
I think Trump's going to successfully get a lot of that crap out of there. He would save Cornell a fortune if he could get rid of all of DEI. Now, I do think the original idea of affirmative action makes sense. It basically said, go find people who are being missed.
Yes, exactly. That is DEI. Are you fucking kidding me right now? That's what DEI is. Go find people who are being missed by the system, who are being overlooked and ignored when they would be superior in this position because they're more qualified, for example, or whatever, more qualified than the other people that are running. Find people that are being missed. Yes, that's DEI. These people are like really vile, disgusting people, honestly.
Look into the dusty corners where you normally don't look and see if you find talent, right? There's a famous chemist named Henry Gilman.
I thought the SAT was designed to do that.
No, it turns out the SAT has problems now. And the reason it has problems is because when Kaplan got a hold of it.
Dude, this guy gets off on so many weird little confusing like rabbit holes. It's hard to tell where the hell he's going next. And he doesn't like stick to a single subject. So I can't nail him down on any single thing. But God, what a fucking nutcase this dude is, really.
They for profit coach kids on how to do well. And then they made it such that the SAT could be taken 3 times and you get to use only the one you like. All of a sudden, the cost of maximizing your score on the SAT became prohibitive. And so it's a legitimate argument that someone coming out of the hood cannot take the Kaplan course and take the SAT 3 times. But you shouldn't get rid of it. You should just be aware of what it's telling you.
Would it be possible to design a corruption-free screen for intelligence and initiative?
Shut up, racist.
The problem is that, all right, affirmative action is designed to account for human bias. The SAT does rule, a lot of this stuff out. But the problem is that, for example, black sounding names are picked less often for positions on with resumes with black sounding names, they're thrown out more often. You got a Tyrone, he's less likely to get the job than a Michael. That's just a fact of the system. And there doesn't have to be a racist actor anywhere in the system, anywhere along the way for that to be the case. That's just how it works, unfortunately. So affirmative action is designed to filter that out, to fix that problem. The only people opposed to affirmative action are actual real racist people or suckers who ate this nonsense up hook, line, and sinker.
No, but I mean, so the idea was that the SAT was supposed to democratize education. We're just going to locate it.
Discover kids who've got double 800s who you wouldn't have spotted.
Exactly.
Right.
And actually, I have a child who got an 800. Couldn't get
Oh, look at me. How special is this guy? I actually have a kid that got an 800. Wow. I wonder how much of that 800 do you think it can be attributed to the fact that he grew up with a ton of fucking money, eating high quality food, having all the time in the world, and basically zero stress in his entire life, and could focus solely on success. How much of that 800 can be attributed to the fact that he is the son to the heir of the Swanson food brand? You know how much generational wealth the black community has? Basically zero. And do you know why that is? Because they were just now, recently allowed to start drinking from from integrated water fountains. They're not drinking from black and white only water fountains anymore. They weren't allowed to operate in broader America until recently. That's why. Tucker is actually really a Nazi. Like, for real. A vile piece of shit. And it's unforgivable.
To college. So clearly it's like the system has gotten so corrupt. So, but the idea, and Kaplan, you said, corrupted it as well.
Well, it kind of corrupted the SAT.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So
Now, the GRE, which is the next level, is nowhere near as corrupted because by then the students don't give a damn. They just, I'll take the GRE, so it's more legit.
but is there
But having generational wealth guarantees that this person will have the opportunity to, what's the word I'm looking for here? To take the test in the first place, right? What if people can't even take the test? They can't manage to get to the test because their lives are shit, because they have too much worry, because they have to get a job at 14 fucking years old to help support their parents. What then?
I mean, but the idea that of a colorblind, class blind, pure, meritocracy test.
The problem is you can't be colorblind in a country that is not colorblind. In a scenario where a large subset of the population is overtly racist, openly racist, says, I am racist, for example, and another large subset of the population has no idea that they are actually like doing things that are perpetuating racism on a systemic level and are none the wiser, have no idea. And even more, over half the population, I would venture to guess, doesn't even realize that systemic racism exists, that there doesn't have to be a racist actor anywhere in the system, and it's still producing racist outcomes. Like black men get harsher sentences for the exact same crime, for the exact same rap sheet, for the same everything, for example.
Why give up on that?
Here's what I think we should do. I was graduate. I was a director of graduate studies, which involved admission into our grad program for 7 years, record. The only guy.
Wow, not to toot my own horn, right? Toot toot, baby, toot toot.
Held the 4 administrative positions in the chemistry department itself. That's pretty good for being the chemistry douchebag. And you learn about things. And I read undergraduate admissions on purpose for a number of years and you read regions. So I might read Manhattan, for example, and you learn about who's applying and stuff like that. And what I think you want to look for is a system where you see evidence that a kid overcame something. And it's not about color, although you could say non-statistically it's about color, right? But a kid from the Ozarks, J.D. Vance, who I find his origin story a little suspicious, I must admit.
Yeah, it's complete bullshit.
But so we had a kid who applied and everything was sunshines and Skittles rainbows in his application. And one of his letter writers said his mother died here, his father died here, he was raised by his neighbors, and I'm going, and he didn't mention it?
I hope you let him in.
Oh my God, yes. You give me in graduate admissions. I see some kid from Stanford with 3.0. I didn't take him because a 3.0 is a kid who accepted a 3.0
and hasn't struggled a day in his life and doesn't give a fuck. Yeah. I, on the other hand, did not get good grades in school. I failed classes. I did poorly, very poorly in school. It wasn't until I went back to high school that I started to kind of get the hang of it. I'm just not like there's a process to learning that you have to go through, like there's a God, I don't know the term I'm looking for here. There is a method to education that you have to learn, and I just never learned the skill that goes with it, not until later. When I was out of school and it didn't really matter anymore. But the point is that I got really poor grades. My kid gets decent grades. But, I didn't come from a good household at all. And my kid came from a household where she is loved absolutely unconditionally, always, no matter what, period. But we've been impoverished the majority of our lives. She's lived in poverty for the majority of her life and hasn't had the money for school supplies or whatever, that's another way in which the system is biased against the poor, and the Black community is disproportionately impoverished because there is no generational wealth. They don't have any generational wealth.
You show me, I'll take a 4.0 from St. Mary's College of the Divinity. Because that kid said, here's the highest you can get to. That kid got there, right? MIT kids with lousy GPAs are lousy grad students. even though they're smarter than hell, but they're cocky. Now, it turns out you show me a kid from Stanford with a 3.0 who played football. I take the kid in a heartbeat. You show me a kid from Stanford who is a 3.0, who is brilliant violinist. I'll take that kid. Here's my son. My son applies to Cornell for reasons he was going to get in. But his resume.
He was going to get in because of nepotism, is what he's saying, right?
I had one son who was underachiever as a kid, who's now phenomenal. And the one who was a superachiever. What's superachieving? And we didn't push him because it was a pain in the ass. We were driving all the time. All-state orchestra, first violin. Gold medalist in the 8th state regional gymnastics championship. 5th in the nation equestrian. Played lacrosse. Got a resume better than that? So here's what happened. My older son, who could care less about school, just nothing. His teacher was like, sweet kid, no attention. At one point I said to a teacher, the only kids he's beating are crack babies. And she kind of blew a snot bubble and then said, yeah, he's now phenomenally successful. He's a super dad. I'm so proud of the level of dadness that he is. He's the director of event management at the Council on Foreign Relations. After being the most...
And does that have literally anything to do with, does that have anything to do with who his dad is? With nepotism, you think? Successful people have successful children. That's just how it works. That is how it has always worked. Neither of my parents were successful. And as a result, I wasn't successful. I lucked into being a YouTuber. Pure unadulterated luck. Well, maybe a little adultery, but no. Pure luck is what it boiled down to for me. And if it hadn't been, if I hadn't lucked into the position of being a YouTuber, I would probably still be a programmer. And believe me, being a programmer or getting into programming was hard enough as it is. I had to lie to get into the field. I had to make up a resume, fabricate a resume because nobody would hire me because I didn't have any experience. I didn't make it through college or anything. It was hard to get into the field. Now I could be a programmer and there would be absolutely no issues. But because I have a lot of experience, I'm very experienced in the field. But the point is that breaking into any field is really, really, really difficult. And the only way anybody breaks into fields nowadays is if their parents were already in the field, pretty much, in the United States, because the economy is so completely fucked.
Underwhelming kid in high school. He grew up. He climbed Mount Stupid a little bit late. Unfortunately, he was in a family that could help him get over it when the time came. The thing that we get credit for is not breaking him, is not forcing him into a mold that didn't fit. You know who he is? You know the book Ferdinand the Bull?
Of course.
Child's story?
Yeah.
That book wasn't for kids. That was for the parents.
I have no idea what that book is.
That was telling the parents, your kid is Ferdinand, maybe. My other one was Mike Mulligan's Steam Shovel.
Yeah.
Right? Faster, the more people watched, the faster he went. Ironically, the overachiever got to Cornell and got lost.
That happens. My wife got to St. John's Law School and got lost for one semester, but pulled it together and not lost, but she didn't know how to operate in a law school environment because it's very, very different from a regular school environment. It's a crucible that's designed to break you down and build you up in a brand new image. It's so intense. It's ridiculous. And people don't fully realize how deeply intense law school is. Anyway, the point is that, some people, they don't know how this works or how to, operate in this environment or whatever, but they figure it out. Ferdinand is a story about a bull who smelled flowers until a bee stung him and was more aggressive. Interesting. Okay. I've never heard of that before.
The underachiever just grew nicely in college. And now the younger one is now a professional after trying cubicle farming and all that crap that you get by being a business major at Cornell Hotel School. He's a professional violinist in Boston.
Better outcome.
Well, that's cool.
Better outcome. Bank of Dad's important because violinists in Boston don't make a lot of money. But I'm happy to support it because it's his soul. You know why he's a professor? You want neurobiology? My wife was flat on her back when she was pregnant. She put headphones against her stomach and played classical music when he...
Oh my God. Yeah. So she put headphones on her stomach that played music and now he's a violinist. Totally. That checks out. Absolutely. These people are fucking ridiculous, dude.
was in the womb. I know prenatal development's important. By the time he's 3 years old, his friends are singing B.I.N.G.O. and he's listening to orchestra pieces. And he'd say, I like this part right here. And you'd hear the second violins come in there and you go, right there, I like that.
As if people don't generally like music. What?
And I'm going, holy shit, this kid's got an ear. He has an ear like you. He developed an ear.
You think that's good? I have 2 ears. Beat that.
In the womb.
Mm-hmm. So don't do that to your womb. You'll have a musician in your family if you do that.
So I want to ask you here, since you mentioned the struggle, the triumph, but also the struggle to pay for it because the economy doesn't support young people very well. Since you did call the financial collapse of 2008, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. In 2002.
In 2002.
Oh my God, it's so fucking stupid. So you're telling me in 2008, in 2002, you said in 2008, there's going to be a massive financial collapse. Is that what you're telling me? Is that what you said? Of course not. He said there's going to be a financial collapse at some point in the future. And lo and behold, in a credit-based economy, 70 years after the last financial collapse, a boom-bust cycle took place and another collapse happened. Wow, you're a fucking genius. How did you do that?
So you couldn't get rich shorting anything.
I shorted twice, and shorting's for fools and pros, and the Venn diagram of those two is almost that.
That's exactly right.
They're both.
I know both.
Yes.
Yeah. Where are we now?
We're in a catastrophic situation.
Catastrophe seems strong.
Yeah. Well, I think you can make arguments the economy has a lot of problems, and there's a paradoxical problem with the economy, and that is you can go up to any 7-Eleven and they can't hire. There's help wanted ads, so it looks like an economy burning hot. But if you look at the high end, there's layoffs going everywhere. So there's foreshadowing of real trouble coming.
The economy is fucked. We are all fucked. 60% of the United States lives paycheck to paycheck, which means they don't have any savings whatsoever. Nothing. That is a real fucking bad sign. And you know an even worse fact? My income relies solely on the goodwill of others, Patreon, having disposable income, and advertising. Who the fuck's going to be advertising when nobody has any money to spend anything? When the economy crashes and it's already, getting there, I'm fucked. I really should have moved to Canada.
So college grad.
Hey, sign up for my Patreon. I'd really appreciate that very much. It would mean so much to me. This is like a really precarious moment in history, in U.S. history, and for me personally. So it would mean a lot if you sign up for my Patreon. Check out cultarchive.org. I did a cult test, basically, where you can see if you're in a cult. And you can look at the historical tests of other groups that already went through this. Also, check out my merch. I have a whole bunch of really cool shirts and stuff. Really interesting. I would really appreciate that. I'm just looking through. He went to fight Mandors until he saw flowers, and he went to smell flowers. Okay, I would have to read that book then.
It's humanities graduates, not engineers or chemists, but the business guy or whatever. They're having trouble getting jobs.
The kind that they're trained for, certainly.
Yeah, but there's just, I know a bunch of them, but you see it in the numbers. Educated 22-year-olds are having trouble getting jobs, but 7-Eleven can't hire.
Right.
So what is that?
Well, so this is a normal sort of, it's a distorted version.
There's nothing normal about what's happening right now.
Of I think, a recession coming or we're in. Now, where it gets complicated is if you don't believe the inflation numbers, which I don't. And you've got Chapwood Index and shadow stats that give inflation numbers that are probably on average 6 or 7% higher than the official numbers. The official numbers are corrupted. And I don't want to go into it because it's technical, but
the CPI is stupid.
The CPI is crap.
Yeah,
right?
I agree with that.
Now, here's the problem. If the economy's been growing 2.5% and the inflation numbers are underestimated by 4%, means we've been in a recession the whole way.
Yeah, moving backwards.
We're moving backward. And you say, well, that can't happen. The recessions last, 2 quarters or whatever. And I go, no, the British Empire was in a recession for a century, right? They just shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. And so no, you can be in a slow decline. But that's not that's not the catastrophe.
Recession means decline.
Yeah. Actually, I think.
Yeah, recession means decline. And depression is when a recession lasts longer than, 6 months or something? I don't remember.
it's a stupid word because
I agree.
it's like you play golf.
No.
Well, if you play golf and you go down into the sand trap, according to the definition of a recession, once you start climbing out, you're out. You ask
I don't know what the fuck that means. What are you even talking about?
a golfer if he's out of the sand trap because he's on the upslope of the trap. He's not.
No.
So the fact that your economy is now growing again, if it's coming out of a hole, as far as I'm concerned, you're not out until you've gotten past that previous period.
So you're at par.
Yeah, so you're at par, right? Now, that's not the catastrophe because they happen all the time, and we've been able to either cover them or fake them or prevent them through very bad monetary
policy.
Right. And what's bad? Pumping the stock market is just stupid. But private equity buys.
Pumping the stock market? Okay.
Private equity buys, has bought up 80% of the hospitals, the healthcare. And what they do is they go in and they buy some organization. They strip it of its assets. They load it with debt. They pay themselves huge fees and bonuses. And then they sell the shell of a company, which is now effectively worthless, into the marketplace, like to pension funds who are not smart enough to recognize that they just bought a piece of crap. And according to Gretchen Morgensen, a 47% bankruptcy rate. Now,
Post-sale.
Now, as long as it's profitable to buy up viable companies, destroy them, sell the shell, and make money, money's too loose.
This guy has no fucking clue what he's talking about. He's some chemist, and he thinks he's an economist. He's not. He's completely full of shit.
Precious capital. If capital is of real value, it's a moat. So a good businessman can get capital, bad businessman can't. The fact that BlackRock could buy single-family dwellings, which is a terrible business, you really can't make money unless there's a housing boom and you leverage up to hell. The fact that they could get it at an interest rate of 0.15% is a highly flawed system.
It is.
And that's where
it is. Absolutely. It is a highly flawed system that would allow a company to get incredible rates on houses like that. That is not good. But again, this guy has no fucking clue what he's talking about with literally anything. And earlier he even said, I think in like one of the previous parts, I'm not sure, he said, I prefer to write and talk about things that I know nothing about. Knock me over with a feather. Really?
Inventory went after 07 to 09. They got bought up by these guys who could lever up and then charge rents to people. So they basically scoop up the housing market. Now,
with free money.
With free money. Kind of free money. Unlike, credit cards, which are 25%, right?
And not just free. I mean, once you factor in inflation,
it's a gift. Yeah, it's profitable money.
Literally, just taking the loan is profitable.
Yes.
You don't have to do anything with it.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
So here's what happened. Somehow the market has ceased to respond. And the reason the market's important is because of the wealth effect. And that is that if you own equities, you own a house, and they're soaring in price, your spending habits change. I'm having a great year, for example. So when the Bank of Dad has to provide some liquidity to the children, I feel okay about it, right? The problem is that it's a false wealth. It's not real wealth. It's a false wealth.
I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Is he saying that sometimes... is he saying that sometimes his stocks do well and sometimes they don't do well, but they're not realized gains yet and they could do worse? Okay.
So what happened? Well, I'm getting tired of seeing these. I see 4-year plots of the equity market and they make various comparisons. I go, don't go back 4 years. Don't go back 40 years. Go back 120 years. So I follow about...
Why the fuck would you do that exactly? We don't live in the same economy at all. That was a manufacturing economy. We now live in a service-based economy. Why the fuck would you go back 120 years? That makes no sense. What are you talking about? This dude is so fucking all over the place.
25 metrics of valuation. Valuation is inherently a price of the market relative to something it ought to track, whether it's the earnings, the revenues, the book value, thing called Tobin's Q, the GDP, which is a fictional number, as I've heard you recently say.
The GDP is a fictional number. No, it's not a fictional number. It's a real number, and it represents the total power of an economy. GDPs help us measure the strength of an economy compared to a different economy. What are you talking about right now? These people are just like in another fucking reality.
But I follow about 25 of them. So you can kind of track where the markets have gotten expensive relative to the thing it ought to track. Now, around 1981, the markets were at the cheapest valuation, arguably in history. Inflation was scaring everyone, which is why they were cheap.
1981. So we're talking 46 years ago, right? I'm not sure why we're looking to 1981 for anything at all. This is before a major crash took place, I think in 1987. Okay, go on.
It turns out that the boomers were just hitting the workforce. So demographics was
1981? Boomer generation is from 52 to 62, I think. Okay, I guess that checks out. That's a little bit late for boomers to have hit the workforce, but fine.
Huge tailwind starting around then. And most economists agree demographics is huge. Now, I'm disingenuous in that I quote economists selectively. In the next sentence, I'll probably say something horrible about them. And so I'm obviously cherry picking my data, but economists like demographics.
Well, if you recognize you're cherry picking your data, then shouldn't that be like a sign that you look at? Shouldn't that be something that you say to yourself, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't be cherry picking my data? I don't understand.
So the boomers hit the workplace, so it was almost guaranteed. I think Reagan was not important. I think he did some very important things, but I think whoever got to be president was going to be at the beginning of a boom.
Well, you're incorrect. Hold on. No idea who that is calling me. Reagan implemented trickle-down economics, which completely fucked the economy. Like, it led to a big boom and then a big bust because we're in a credit-based economy. And when you cut taxes for the rich in a credit-based economy like that, it's going to create a temporary boom, but an eventual bust, because the ultimate goal of those rich people is to keep money in their pockets, right? So they're going to have a bunch of extra expendable money that they can, spend on whatever they want. They're temporarily going to spend it on building their company more, but when they're done doing that, they're going to hoard it, because that's the goal, is to put more money in their own pockets at the end of the day. That's the goal of every billionaire. Put more money in my own pocket. And the economy is not necessarily a zero-sum game. It's not a zero-sum game. Like, there isn't a set amount of money, $10 trillion, that exists in the US economy. And if billionaires have 9 trillion, then the rest of the economy only has 1 trillion. It doesn't really work that way exactly, because we can create wealth. But when it comes to trickle-down economics, it is a zero-sum game, in that these people are taking money out of the economy without replacing it, they're not generating wealth. They're taking wealth from elsewhere and putting it in their pockets. Like, when you're cutting taxes for billionaires, they're not getting more money by generating it, is the problem. So in that scenario, it's a zero sum. And Reagan was responsible for that.
It turns out that China was coming out of the Dark Ages. They started selling labor at slave wages. They were so desperate for capital when they sent their leader, don't make me pronounce his name,
Xi?
To the United Nations when he first started.
Wait, when is he talking about? Is he still talking about 1981?
Opening up.
Is it Deng Xiaoping?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they had to scrounge to get the money to send them. I mean, they really didn't have any foreign capital. And so I remember when China said, we're going to let our workers keep some of their profits. And it's like,
a lot of the shit that this dude has said so far is completely made up. Like, completely made up. So don't trust a word out of his mouth. Literally fabricated out of the ether. Like the claim that FDR's second in command, or his whatever, was a Soviet spy. No, that's simply false. He was not. He was not a Soviet spy. It's just a lie. So don't trust a word out of his mouth, is my point.
Whoa. Russia had Soviet Union hadn't collapsed, but they were in trouble, so they were obviously cranking a resource base as hard as they could, and we had our guys in there helping them and stuff like that. And interest rates were at all-time highs. And if you read a 1999 article by Buffett, who I think is a hoser, I think he's much more of a stock jobber, much more of a conniver than he is. He loves to be the mafia don, walk around in a bathrobe saying, I'm harmless. He is not harmless.
Okay, I don't know what you're talking about. Are you saying that Warren Buffett is a bad person, or, I mean, okay.
Harmless. When we're in a bottom, he breaks all sorts of laws. They do all sorts of insider crap to bail the system out. But he pretends to just like Dairy Queen and Coca-Cola and whatever. He wrote an article in 99 that said, you want to understand secular, big, long, bull versus bear markets, it's all interest rates. He said, it's not GDP. He said, from 67 to 81, everything sucked. It treaded water, not accounting for inflation, and the markets dropped 75% accounting for inflation. So it was a horrible period. He said the GDP grew faster during that period than from 81 to 99.
Okay, I don't understand what point he's trying to make here or why I should give a fuck. What does this have to do with literally anything?
But interest rates from 67 to 81 went up monotonically. From 81 to 99, they went down.
I don't understand what point he's making. Is he just like rambling? Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. This dude is ridiculous.